Hold them, use your voice. Let's call the meeting to order, if I could, please. Nice to see everybody came out for tonight, important meeting. Like to do the pledge of the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Nice to see everybody out. We're gonna start with information session with Shelley Johnson Bennett, Commissioner, Delaware County Department of Planning, Parks and Watershed Affairs, Delaware County Public Information Officer. A lot of shoes, yes, a lot of shoes.
We don't ever need to print all of those titles.
I was told.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So I was asked by the town board to come and talk to all of you in regards to the concerns the community has regarding specifically two somewhat controversial land uses, data centers and battery energy storage systems. There's certainly a process for a town to control land uses in your communities, and that process is a very public legal process that needs to take place. The foundation of all land use laws is in your comprehensive plan, which for those of you that don't know, your planning board is actually updating right now. They're working on actually coming up with new objectives to guide your community through the future. In the meantime, these uses have popped up and they have impacts. Some of them have very dramatic impacts. Data centers in particular, they draw a lot of energy, they draw a lot of water. Water is a big one. So they can have huge environmental footprints. So there's definitely concern about how a municipality deals with those reviews. I know that at one point, somebody had proposed a ban, I'm assuming, said Paul. New York state law is a little tricky when you start banning land uses. We're a home rule state, we're also a property right owner state, which means people have the right to get the greatest benefit of their land that they own within reason to the laws. And that's where land use laws come in, is balancing individual landowners' rights under the laws to the needs and the benefit and the health and welfare of the community. So that's why you have to have this very public planned process that really identifies the needs. So typically, rather than going straight to a ban, what we would suggest to a community that you actually adopt what we call a moratorium. A moratorium basically halts any permit for these uses until the community has time to do an appropriate evaluation of the potential impacts to your community and can adjust land use laws if needed to address them. And by addressing them, citing them in appropriate locations if you're going to cite them at all, or clearly define why they aren't applicable here or couldn't be done here. Again, banning land uses being extremely difficult and challengeable under the laws. Because land use laws are challengeable in the courts by any landowner or any business that feels aggrieved by the decisions of the town board, I personally tend to be very conservative in my advice to towns. I try to make sure that we are doing all of the appropriate steps to complete a public record that's defensible in the courts. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a planner, but I've done a lot of these. So for both the data centers and the battery energy storage facilities, my suggestion to the town of Sidney's board was that they adopt a moratorium for a year, that we would then use that time frame as we're doing the comprehensive plan to have the planning board and the town board actually evaluate those uses so that we can appropriately regulate them through your land use laws. There is a lot of concern even at the state level, particularly on data centers. The governor has not signed a moratorium yet, although there has been one approved by the state assembly to put a moratorium on at the state level. A lot of it having to do with the large withdrawals of water that they require. But to my knowledge, the governor has not signed that yet, so it would be appropriate at the local level to take steps to protect yourselves now. So this became a public information session more so than a public hearing, because there actually isn't a law right now written for the town of Sidney to have a public hearing on, which is a very legal process. So we turned it into a public information session and the board asked me to come so I could actually answer your questions on how to move forward with this, what it actually means and what it would entail for the town of Sidney to regulate these uses long term. So I guess I don't know how you typically take questions, do
We'll
you?
take a show if who wants to speak, and take 3 minutes to speak.
I just have a quick question. At this point, there are no proposals for a data center or a battery operation in our area or anywhere close? Do you know?
There is a proposal in the town of Maryland, in Otsego County, for a fairly, what they consider a small data center. I would still consider it a large impact, but it's considered a small data center to the very, very, very beginning stages. And as far as battery energy storage facilities, we're actually reviewing a very large one in the town of Camden right now.
Hamden?
Yes, on Hampton Hill.
How far is that from us? Give or take.
About half an hour over the hill.
And in the one in Maryland, are they fighting it or approving it?
They don't have an active application yet. The developer has come and spoken to the board about the proposal that they're putting together. It's a pretty extensive review process under site plan, so they're doing their engineering work and their environmental work right now. So they don't have an actual application in front of the board, they just know it's coming.
And how long does that normally take?
Depending on the use, so seeker, New York State has some pretty strict environmental laws, and seeker can actually hold up a development for a long time if a community really feels there's potential environmental concerns. Again, you have to prove that somehow it's gonna be an environmental concern. But a lot of times what ends up happening is municipalities end up having to bring in professional consultants to help them. And that does stall or delay things a little bit so that we can get an appropriate review.
So there are people, agencies that would come in and say, hey, this is too much water for this town, or this is too much.
Yeah, so they would have to, so in this region, you would actually have to get what they call water withdrawal permit from the Susquehanna River Basin Commission, which regulates large water withdrawals from the actual Susquehanna or the Chesapeake Bay. Because the Susquehanna is actually a water source for cities downstream, including the city of Binghamton, which is not very far. That's actually their water source. Right, so the SRBC does have some control there. There are Department of Environmental Conservation permits that need to be sought. There are Army Corps permits that need to be sought. There are, depending on the site, you could potentially have wetland impacts. You could potentially have flora and fauna impacts that need to be addressed. And then there's also always the cultural impacts, historic preservation pieces, archaeological work, all of those things have to be done before any large land use can be approved.
Thank you.
And I can tell you, you guys do have some protection already in your zoning, and I actually brought those closets so I can read them to you so I don't mess it up. But basically, when your zoning was written, even when it was first written, there were protections written right into your law that prohibits uses that haven't already been studied. So you actually have section 1110 called prohibited uses. Any use not specifically listed as permitted in this local law shall be considered prohibited. So basically right now, if you don't list it as a permitted use in your community, it's prohibited by your law. Somebody would have to petition the town board to amend the zoning to allow the use before they can even get an approval under that clause. And to take it one step further, say it's a comparable use, somebody argues it's similar to another use you already have. You have section 503, which is called equivalent uses. So what that one says is that the code enforcement officer shall refer the matter to the town planning board for an interpretation as to whether the proposed use is an equivalent use to a permitted use in a particular district. The planning board shall report its findings to the town board, and if these findings are positive, they must make a recommendation that the local law for zoning be amended to list the equivalent use as appropriate for the zoning district. In no case shall a building permit be issued for an equivalent use until the local law has been amended to permit such equivalent use in the appropriate zoning district.
Wow.
And so that you understand, amending the zoning law is not as simple as the town board making a motion and saying, yeah, we want to let it happen. If they're going to amend the local law, there has to be a public hearing, there has to be a seeker review, it has to go to the county for review, and it has to be filed with New York State's Department of State in order for that law to take effect, even if it's as simple as adding one land use to your permitted uses. So there's a public process to that you would be aware of. There would be a hearing, all of those things would happen. So you have built-in protections in your zoning. That doesn't mean we shouldn't still evaluate these uses and address them in your comp plan and then possibly address them by putting regulations in place. long-term in your zoning, but as of right now, if somebody were to come here and propose a data center or a battery storage facility, or quite frankly, a whole slew of other potential uses that are not in your current zoning, they are technically not allowed. They can't apply for them right now without an entire process to change the law.
Is that just for the town of Sidney, or
Yes.
is that for, like, Sidney Center and stuff outside?
Well, Sidney Center is part of the town.
Yeah, that's what.
So anything that's in the town proper, the only thing that this law doesn't apply to is the village of Sidney, which has its own zoning and its own land use law, its own planning board. So anything within the actual boundaries of the town of Sidney have to comply with this language.
And then you also said, if they put the moratorium on, that you would do, but there, I know what a moratorium is, because we
Yeah.
did that in the town of Walco for a while and stuff, but, you said somebody would be doing the investigation, you know, what, who exactly would that be for? Like, is there like, a group of people, is there a committee, is there, you know, what is?
So the planning board would be looking at it as part of the part of the town's comp plan, and I actually work with your planning board, so my office will do a lot of research. We generally work with the Department of State. We have, Young and Summer, which is an environmental law office, our office uses as consultants. We quite often go through them to provide us with legal advisement on these types of uses to get the best wording. We've worked with the Department of State, and we will always recommend that the town board, before they do anything, have the town attorney review it for compliance.
And I have one other question, if it's okay.
Sure.
Just because I saw this on, online just the other day. So there was a town somewhere, I wasn't really paying attention, so I can't tell you where, but I could find it. I guess they approved the data center in some way, shape or form. And they put up like walls around, supposedly that was gonna separate, you know, whatever. And when they applied for the thing, they said they were gonna use generators to power it. But the generators would only be temporary. The generators didn't end up being temporary, and now the people in that town just have this constant, I mean, it's bad, like, it's really loud.
Constant noise, yeah.
So it would seem like it would go against the noise ordinance.
Yeah, so any use has to comply with all laws on the book. So if you have a noise law, it has to comply with that. The other thing is when we work with our planning boards in Delaware County and we review an application, someone from my staff is at the table. Generally, what we try to do, especially with large land uses, when they are proposed for a final approval, after all environmental review and everything is done, we typically put conditions on those. And one of the conditions in that case would be that the generators are only allowed for a certain period of time. If that period of time comes and goes and the generators were not removed, the code enforcement officer would shut them down.
Yeah, then maybe they got an extension, I don't really, like I said, I didn't see the whole thing, I only saw a snippet of it, but I saw them interviewing the people.
Yeah, it would probably all depend on how that project was approved, whether there were conditions on that approval or not. But those are things that in the public process and the environmental process that we would take into consideration, and any approvals we put conditions on those things. Those conditions are important because your code enforcement officer and your town judges, they can't do anything to help with those situations if we aren't very clear in the approvals of what is allowed and what isn't. And it's the same with your land use laws. If we're not very clear in your zoning law about what a use is, how it's regulated, how we're going to permit it, how it's going to be allowed to be adopted, it's very difficult for your code officers to enforce those laws. So it puts a lot of burden on them. So we try to be very clear in all of that, which is why the moratoriums are great, because they give you, in this case, I would propose a year, but they give you a time frame to actually work all of that out so that you're not under the duress of, we have this big application and now we're in the time frames of 62 days to approve under state law. You've got a year to figure it out. It puts a hold on any development or permits so that you can take the time that's needed to have that conversation, to do that research, and to write an appropriate law for your community.
Are we heading toward a moratorium as a board? Have we made that decision yet?
And that's up to you guys. It's certainly doable.
I think so.
Probably.
Yeah, the rumor mill out there is that there are townships that are being offered, and I'm not casting aspersions, it's my first meeting and I wanna start that way. But there are rumors that townships are actually doing this in the dead of night. They are being offered so much money to get this done, and it's gonna be so good for paving roads and building schools and hospitals, that they're not doing open meetings and they're not asking the communities, and by the time the community finds out about it, they're built and it's done.
How many folks here are for a moratorium?
There you go.
Well, it's not, we're not voting, right? We have nothing to say. Right?
Yeah, but we
So,
listen.
but this type of public information session is exactly about that. It's about feeling out the community to decide what you as a community would like your town board to do as actions. They have the duty then of taking you through the legal process of making sure it's done correctly to protect the town from lawsuits, whether it be from an industry or a landowner that may be trying to contract with somebody, things of that nature. So there's a legal process. A moratorium is a local law by itself. So it has to have a public hearing. It has to have, it's actually type 2 under seeker, but it does have to go to county for review under 239. So it takes a couple of months because it is a local law. It has to be filed with the Department of State. But they have to be for what they call a reasonable amount of time. Typically we try to do them for a year. We actually just did one in Walton for battery storage. We did it for a year with a clause in there that allows them to extend it an additional 6 months without adopting a new local law, so that they have like a 6-month clause on the end of it as well, just to give them the needed time to do the research. Yes.
Hamden's talking about proposals of a battery center. Know a little bit more about the environmental impacts of data centers than I do the battery storage. Will that affect us over here?
No, there wouldn't be anything that would affect over here. For Hamden is one of those towns, they don't have zoning. They don't even have that layer of land use protection. They have site plan review, which gives them the ability to kind of look at a site, make sure things are appropriately set, maybe keep some setbacks from homes, put in some trees, but they don't actually have a law that says you can't have this land use. So they had no way of stopping this because they don't have zoning at all. But with battery storage, is the biggest threat with the battery storage facilities and the research that we've done is the fire threat. When those battery storage facilities catch fire, we can't put them out. We have to let them burn out, and it can take days and days. So what ends up happening is our fire departments, which are all volunteer and rural, have to literally stand there and keep everything around it wet and cold so that nothing else catches fire. And that's a huge financial burden on our communities. And it is part of the evaluation we're doing with that facility right now. And again, we're not doing that in a vacuum or alone. The town has actually contracted with Young and Summer, which is, so Kevin Young, who runs Young and Summer, is actually the author of the New York State Environmental Quality Review law from the 70s. He and his partner Dan Russo wrote the law. So nobody knows it better than he does. We've actually contracted with him to make sure that the environmental review is done legally and correctly. And then they've also put out an RFP on a hiring an engineering firm to actually review all of the documentation, a firm that specializes in this type of land use, so that everything can be hopefully mitigated to the greatest extent possible. But fire service is going to be a huge issue for battery storage facilities because we can't put those fires out, and we have rural volunteer fire departments that just don't have the capacity to handle those kinds of fires.
Can it be written into their agreement that they're responsible for?
So there are a number of agreements that the attorneys are trying to put together now for a use like that, which again, as long as your law is defined, we can do with any land use, especially a large potential impact, that we can write agreements in there that if something were to happen, they are responsible for financing the fire department or for paying the town for the use of equipment to make sure that it's contained properly. So we can write those into the approvals and into the agreements that are done with the companies. But in order to do that, we have to have a foundation for that, which is why it's so important that we do this research up front, so we can use that as the foundation for any of those approval clauses.
Where does that stand now in Hampton?
They just received the complete application about 2 weeks ago, so we're under review right now. It's gonna take months.
It can be refused still, or there are
They
lawsuits.
could, in theory, if there's a fatal flaw in the application, they could potentially deny it, but these are companies that are very good at putting these applications together. Right now, the process really is about ensuring we've identified all potential local impacts and have mitigated them to the greatest extent possible, which could mean downsizing it. It could mean them having to put up some form of screening. It could mean we may require them to put a water tank right there on site to handle any fire that comes about, so that we aren't dragging pumpers up there for a fire event. There are a number of things we're looking at as possible mitigation to those impacts that could become part of the approval process.
The financial burden, if there is a fire, is that on Hamden?
The financial burden is on actually, so Hamden is part of the Delhi Fire District, so it's actually part of that fire district's burden.
And it is their burden.
It will be their burden.
If one of these things gets built.
Yeah.
And then the economy goes bad for them and they go out of business, who's left with cleaning up whatever they built?
So typically, if we determine that there is an environmental hazard associated with the land use, now we do this a lot with renewable energy projects. We have what we call a decommissioning strategy and a bonding for decommissioning, meaning that the town actually holds money from the developer. That if there is a cleanup that's necessary, the town has the money to do it with if they walk away and don't do it themselves. If they do clean it up to the satisfaction of everybody, DEC and the whole 9 yards, they get that bond back after it's decommissioned. So for any large land use, that's one of the things we would look at as potential decommissioning clauses.
I know with battery storage, a big thing about it is location. They always want to put it where the next to the grid. Is Sidney at all a ideal spot for it?
I honestly, I don't know. I haven't cited any of them. I do know the one is going on Hampton Hill because it's literally across the street from a large NICEAG substation. That's why it's being located where it is. But there's nothing that says just because you may not have that infrastructure today, that there isn't an upgrade where you have that infrastructure later that accommodates it. So the laws are really, we should be planning not for what's happening right now, but for what we potentially think could happen in the future, which is what we try to do. So we try to look at it as, yes, there is some place in Sydney that this could happen, so let's address it.
The storage center itself doesn't have, bad environmental impact, but you said these fires last for days and can't be put out. I imagine batteries being on fire for multiple days has an extreme environmental impact.
That's something that we're looking at, but even DEC has said that any of them that have caught fire, because there are a number of them around the state already, that DEC has claimed there has not been an air emissions issue. Now, we have about that. But it is something that we're looking at and something that the Delaware County Emergency Services Department has actually brought in specialists to train our fire departments on how to deal with these storage facilities. Even the small ones, if you have a solar project, for instance, they might have small battery storage as part of the solar farm. They can catch fire too. So EMS has brought in people to actually train our firemen about that. And one of the things that the trainer did say is the batteries themselves may not emit toxins when they burn, but the stuff that they're encased in does. And that may be the issue that we have to contend with. But I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. I'm just telling you what the experts tell us.
Will the Hamden agreement be online so other people can see it, or is it gonna be?
So the Hamden agreement will be a public document. I mean, Hamden's a small rural town. They don't do a whole lot online necessarily, so I don't know that the agreement will be online, but it would definitely be a public document that could be shared with
Like the
people.
whole agreement on who's investing into this and all that stuff?
Yeah, once it's all in place, that can be made public, yes.
And where would we find that?
You would have to probably foil the town of Hamden for it. It's not public yet because the agreement doesn't exist yet, because they're just starting a review.
Are there any chances that a state agency like ORES or something like that could step in and, supersede local law with regard to these kinds of things?
There always is, which is what has happened with renewable energy, is once you get a certain size renewable energy project, the state actually approves them. The locals have very little input or say.
Basically eminent domain.
Well, it's not really eminent domain. Eminent domain is if they're actually taking your land. They don't consider this a taking of land because typically when somebody is approving something on property, that landowner agrees to it. So if the landowners agree to it, it's not technically eminent domain. But what the state has done with renewable energy is projects that are emitting a certain amount of energy, I think it's 25 kilowatts or something is the criteria. When you get to that size of a project, it's considered to have a greater benefit to the state. So the state controls the approvals instead of the local community. And we have to apply for what they call intervener status to have a seat at the table to even be part of that review process. And our local laws are considered information, but they do not have to comply with them.
So the state can step in do these companies then go directly to the state and
Yes.
bypass us and make it big enough that we don't have anything to say about?
Currently for the renewable energy projects that are of a certain size, yes, that is exactly what happens. They apply through ORAs, which is a public process, and they have to notify the local municipality, ORAs notifies the local municipality that is taking place in. And then that local municipality has a right to apply for intervenor status to be a part of the review. But as far as forcing it to come before your town planning board or your town board for an approval, that doesn't exist. The local approval is not there because it's approved at the state.
The state overrides an authority, is there anything we can do to fight back after the process?
Only if you can prove that there's some sort of drastic impact to your community, which has to be done during the review process to begin with. It's very difficult to fight the state once they deem something as having a greater state benefit.
You define, what is ORAS?
It's the Office of Renewable Energy and I forget what the S is.
Fine.
Citing.
Citing, yes.
Thank you.
Is the battery storage facility in Hamden directly associated with like a solar farm? Or, so it's just they take power out of the grid when it's cheap and then they sell it back when it's.
But what it
expensive?
does is the grid is at capacity, so they're trying to get more energy to New York City is the big issue. There's the power line that they were trying to dump, the underground power line that they had proposed, they were gonna take it directly from Rome, New York. It was gonna go down through Delaware County and right down to the Bronx. These are DC lines. They are literally just to get energy to New York because that's where there's a lot of draw. And when they took the Indian Point offline, that took a lot of nuclear power offline in the city. So they need more energy coming from upstate to meet that gap. So what the state has done, because there's such a burden on the grid right now, particularly when you have hot days like this, you see the messages coming up from Mayor Mondami right now saying, please don't, go above 78 degrees with your air conditioning, because we all have to balance it out. So what the battery storage facilities are intended to do is it literally takes the power off the grid and holds it. So that when the grid is at capacity, you can build more capacity in. In this case, it's 135,000 megawatts that it'll be able to build back in. And as it draws down through the line, it trickles back up. So that you can build in that additional 135,000 megawatts without there being additional capacity in the line itself. That's all those batteries are doing.
It's a separate entity than people that are providing the power, so it'll probably
Yes.
be provided back at it.
Yeah, NICEAG, this is not a NICEAG project, this is a private developer that is building this.
I don't know if you have the question.
Yeah, I just can't see him over there, yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, because Delaware County is predominantly retirement county, like for a lot of downstate people. A lot of those people have breathing issues. Is there any requirement for them to put have a bond issue in case of a fire where the air is contaminated to help these people, or with their health, to maintain themselves some way?
So that would be, so any air emissions permit is not issued locally, that would be issued by DEC itself. So if there were any conditions or any type of mitigation put on that permit, it would have to be done through the DEC. We don't actually have control locally of over air emissions, that all comes from the State Department of Environmental Conservation through a permit.
But does the DEC have the power to request something like that?
I've never seen them do it. It doesn't mean they couldn't change a law to do it, but I've never seen them do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I know that data centers technically can be considered, national defense, so federal government can mandate that subject to battery storage still, right?
No, so battery storage right now is not falling under those different components. The data centers are falling under some federal regulations. And all of these things, because they don't necessarily serve just the area, all of these things fall under the federal laws of interstate commerce and trade. So at any point, the state and federal government can step in and basically say there's a greater need for these things than the local concern. But that's all why it's all that much more important that we study it and have a solid law that's defensible in your community for these things, so that we can say, okay, you may be taking jurisdiction, But these are things that are important to our community. These are sensitivities in our community. It could be the fact that we are a poorer community with an aging population. We don't have public transportation. We have very limited resources for our poor in many cases. We have limited housing allowability. Those are all things that are part of that environmental review for any project. And we can certainly argue those and hope that the state then considers them as part of their review process.
How attractive? You hear different things, one that a small town like us, maybe we don't have enough power for them to, for it to be worth it for them to build here. On the other hand, because we have so much undeveloped land, right, in the area, that it is a benefit to them. Is there something about this area that would be attractive to a data center? Can we gauge
No,
that?
I mean, we're not in an area that, the thing with data centers is you don't have to be near where the data is created. You can, because data can go anywhere
Right.
through fiber optics. So I think the limitations for us are gonna be things like, we do have limited power in our power grid. We have limited water resources, and we have very protected water resources. Both the Delaware River Basin Commission and the Susquehanna River Basin Commission are considered wild and scenic protected river systems. So those protected water systems themselves, because of those fisheries that exist, there is some protection built in under the federal environmental laws that could basically make it difficult for a data center to come here, but certainly not impossible.
No.
So basically, it's kind of whatever we're talking about here is kind of useless because of foreigners stepping in and what they've done over there. But they're allowed to go into the Adirondack, things that were, sorry because of my injury, I don't remember a lot of things exactly, but, Forever Wild. The Forever Wild areas of the Adirondacks are now being opened up to owners, like that.
Well, that's for solar and renewable
Right, yeah, I
energy,
know
but
that, but-
Oregon doesn't have control over data centers or battery storage right now. They still very much are locally controlled. So there is definitely merit and benefit to addressing it at a local level right now. And even if the state or federal government were to take control, if you don't have laws or your laws are completely silent on it,
Okay.
you basically don't have any teeth to say, I want to be at the table, I want intervener status. In order to get intervener status, you have to show that you somehow have a vested interest or some vested protection to afford the review process. And because that's a closed process, unless you're listed as an intervener, which is a legal process,
Right.
you can't be at the table. So in most cases, so what happened with the power line they were proposing underlined, there were two people that were listed under intervener. It was Delaware County, which represented the 4 towns in the county that it was going through, and Trout Unlimited. Because the state determined we were the only ones that actually had a potential vested interest in this project where there could be impact to us. And we had the ability to apply. But if you don't have anything in your law that says you're regulating it, or you've identified it as a potential hazard or something that needs to have a deeper look at, then you don't really have the foundation to get intervener status if the state were to take control of these land uses. So it is important for your comp plan to address it, for your local laws to address it, and to build standards that can be applied reasonably.
That makes sense.
Just regarding what might draw or attract a data center to this area. If the Constitution pipeline is built, that would be a major, energy source that a data center company could afford to tap into. So anywhere along the Constitution pipeline, which would go through Sidney, would be a place where they might build a data center.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know enough about how they use energy. If they would build off natural gas or not, I would assume they could. It's an energy source.
Mine's kind of two-part. The first is that you said that our river is extremely protected, but there's several hundred sewage treatment plants along that same river. Could they use whatever loopholes the sewage treatment plants did to get on the river to also get on the river?
So sewage treatment plants are along the river, but they're also heavily regulated. Those permits, they have to get what they call a speedies permit from the state Department of Environmental Conservation, and they have to maintain that. And they're at a point now because of the PFAS regulations where they may actually have to be even upgraded to deal with PFAS differently at the sewage treatment plants. And they're considered a local utility. that is approved by a local municipality. Data centers and battery storage facilities are privately owned. They have they don't have what they consider a local municipal benefit, like a sewage treatment plant or a water system does, because those are local benefit utilities. These are privately owned for-profit entities, so they do fall under a different category of the laws.
Then the next thing is, if we do place that suspension in place and somebody goes to the state to try to override us, and we get onto that position at the table, can we use the fact that they saw these laws in place and went around us to fight them based on deceptive business practices?
Oh, absolutely. You can use any one of those legal arguments to get into intervener. But in this case, that for the state to take control over this and say they're going to do it, that in itself would be a long process, because they have to have legislative hearings, they have to, I wanna say in some cases, they've even had to put these decisions up to referendum for the state to take control of those uses. So the state wouldn't be able to do that tomorrow. If you did a moratorium, say next month or the month after here in Sidney, there's no way that the state would take over control of that before you had something in place locally.
Since these data centers or battery, and going back to the battery storage in Hamden, since it's owned by a private entity. And then, so it's buying energy, I guess, and reselling it. Do we, the people, have any recourse? Because our energy bills are already high, you know, that means that they would go even higher.
Not
No.
necessarily. I mean, it's, they're a user just like you are, so they would pay a bill just like you would pay a bill if they're using energy. As far as the battery storage goes, with them taking it off to create capacity, that's all they're doing is creating capacity. They're not generating more energy. They're just creating
Yeah,
capacity. in the
Are they
system.
selling it back to us or are they selling it back to themselves?
No, they basically are a private entity that contracts with energy companies to provide storage and capacity in the system. They're not actually buying or selling energy, they're storing energy. That's all they're doing.
Are townships banding together to kind of get an idea? Do we have more power if we do a moratorium, but we also do it in tandem with other
Not
surrounding areas?
necessarily, because we're a home rule state, so every municipality has the authority to make your own decisions. Now, just as an example, Delaware County has 19 towns, only 7 of our towns have zoning laws.
Wow.
Well, nobody thought this was, wait, don't you have to have zoning to put a mobile home on a piece of land?
Absolutely not.
Wow.
All you need is a building permit.
Do we have a little bit of protection because of, like, the Susquehanna takes care of like the, down to, all the way down to Virginia and stuff, and the Cannonsville is the New York City's watershed. So, like, are they kind of staying away from those areas because?
So far, they have avoided those areas,
Anyway.
and there's additional regulation because of that. So, like I said, you have the river basin commissions that have to give a water withdrawal permit. Even your golf courses have to get a water withdrawal permit from the Susquehanna River Basin Commission. So like the Oleout Golf Course, they have to get a permit every year from the Susquehanna Basin Commission to withdraw the water to maintain their golf course, because they're a large consumer. The data centers would consume more than a golf course is, so the SRBC is going to very much be evaluating that. And the reason I believe this one is being proposed in Maryland is because it's above the headwaters of Goodyear Lake of the Susquehanna. They don't fall into the jurisdiction of the SRBC.
Unbelievable.
Well, the water they put back is a higher temperature.
Absolutely, which
So it
is
can't be
part of the
used.
Delaware's argument. So below the Cannonsville and in the upper Delaware region, where the Cannonsville and Compacton, that is now a nationally renowned cold water fishery for trout. And because it's been put on the national fishery, any water temperature fluctuations actually are considered an impact to the water quality. So that is even more protected over there because of that cold water fishery and the warming of the waters by these data centers.
Now, how do we balance this all with the fact that we all want data? We all wanna use our phones, we all wanna, whatever.
Stop making pictures of AI on Facebook.
Poor cats.
Oh, that I don't do. That I don't do. In fact, I call my other friends out for doing it. I'm like, really? You have so many other things you could be doing besides making pictures of yourself that make you hate the real you. But, I don't know, like stuff, just like the pipeline, you see all the signs up. No pipeline, no pipeline, no pipelines, but everybody wants gas, everybody wants
Realistically, if
to,
you don't want
you know.
data centers, you have to make a choice between using AI or having data centers.
And it, unfortunately, that's a national conversation right now, because, you know, a lot of the data centers that might be built here in New York, they have nothing to do with data in New York. It could be drawing data from Canada for all we know.
Surveillance.
It could be surveillance, it could be the federal government.
So it's kinda off topic, but it's the same thing because they all, if a data center, the battery storage comes up, the clock cameras come. Or vice versa. Have you guys heard anything about clock cameras coming around this area?
No, certainly.
Block camera. Block camera.
They're the only ones that-
AI
so.
Yeah.
Binghamton has quite a few, Oneonta has a couple.
They're basically license plate readers, but they're using the information to do more than that.
Okay.
And they're keeping the information indefinitely, and it not only just tracks, like if you, say that your registration is expired, they can catch that. But it's also tracking where you go socially, where you go to church, where you take your kids, so.
And it's a private
Well, that's the phone that they put
Private
in your
equity.
pocket,
Well,
the
yeah.
phone that's in your pocket is already doing all of that.
One at a time, one at a time.
Tracked by the police.
Yeah. Well, anybody.
That isn't anything we've had, and it's not a land use we can control,
Yes, ma'am.
unfortunately.
Question.
You one moratorium, does that include both data center and the battery storage?
No, we would do two separate moratoriums, one for each, and address them both separately.
Just Darius.
So since the moratorium has an end of life, even if it's built in, could you mandate that, I don't know, that they have to use more expensive systems to get like closed water systems, they have to put more money into fire suppression, so on and so forth, sort of like make it harder for them to even justify building out here.
Yeah,
Even so.
So when we do a land use law, I mean, understanding, everything in the law has to be considered reasonable. You can't put something in there that's so unreasonable, it could never happen, even you as a municipality couldn't do it. So it has to be reasonable. And every single project, New York State case law has been very clear that in land use, there is no precedence. Every single project is reviewed on its own merit, independent of what has been happening with other projects, because every piece of property is different. Every potential environmental impact is different. Every view shed is different. So you review each of them independently. So what we would do is we would put standards in there that they have to meet. And then the planning board always has the ability, if you make it, especially if you make it a special use permit, the planning board and or the town board have the authority to put conditions in those approvals. So that you can mitigate impacts based on what you're talking about. So we could always put a condition in there that they have to, like I said, they may, with the one in Hamden, we're talking about potentially making them put an actual water tower on site. So that we can water right from there, because they don't have a water system in Hamden with fire hydrants to tap into. They'd be hauling trucks up nonstop. Like, there are things we can do to mitigate potential impacts that become conditions of the approval.
So what do we do now?
I think this has been a really good discussion, because I think you guys are really hearing what your residents want. I have prepared, I think I sent to Sheila for your training to look at the moratorium for, was it data centers or battery storage was one of them. So I think it was for battery storage. And I'll draft a similar one for data centers. And then, once your attorney says, yep, they're good, they're one-page local laws, they're very simple, they're very generic. But basically, you would then have to hold a public hearing, you'd have to send it for 239 review, and then once adopted, you have to file with the Department of State. And then if that, so I wrote this would be a year, 365 days. If it goes for the whole year during that time frame, the planning board will finish the comp plan, and then we will propose actual regulations that address the potential impacts of these land uses and what districts they may be appropriate in. You may say they're only appropriate in certain districts, like they're not appropriate in the Sidney Center Hamlet district, or they're not appropriate in the residential districts. That, so you can really limit that scope way down by only permitting them in certain districts, but that has to be based on our findings in the comp plan and.
So for now, we should, like, vote to hold a public hearing next.
Yeah, I can get the moratorium to Sheila tomorrow, and I always recommend to send things to your attorney to review before you adopt anything. You could have your lawyer review it before the next meeting, you could schedule your public hearing for your next meeting. Refer it to me for 239, I can get the county planning board to review it at our August meeting. And then once you adopt it, just make sure it gets filed with the Department of State like any other local law.
Okay.
I have to sign them.
With the plan.
So,
We can motion to do that?
Okay, wait a minute. Motion for a public hearing, and this is gonna be two different.
Yes, it's two
local
different
laws.
local laws, so it'll be two hearings, you can do them back to back.
Okay,
But it would be definitely two hearings, because it's two local laws.
okay, are you making the motion,
I'll
Karen?
make the motion.
I'll second.
All in
Kelly, how
favor?
was the public hearing, put out to the public?
Any way that the town ever publicizes, so in your legal paper,
I put it in the paper for, it will be in the paper for 2 weeks. I'll put it on
A
Facebook.
lot of people don't get the paper, so I'm asking, there was people that I spoke to about this. We're not aware of it, they don't use Facebook, they don't use
Okay.
any of this, so there's no mailing or anything.
no, there's no mailing of these types of laws, it's just whatever the town's legal
Word of mouth to
requirements
people.
for notification.
I actually put tonight's on a public announcements on the radio as well, and I'll do the same for the public hearing for the next meeting.
I was just wondering if there was anything different we've been doing.
Go back to the motion.
I just have a question. I actually live in Unadilla, but we're so close town wise. I see how Sidney does have some protections for zoning. Could I get a copy of that and see if Unadilla has those same things and if I could?
Just go out to the website, go to townofcity.gov.
Yeah, I'd love to go to the town meeting.
Just pull it down.
And I can tell you the section numbers, if you wanna write them down, the section numbers are. Section 1110, so 1110 is prohibited uses, and section 503 is equivalent uses.
Can you
take a picture of that paper so that?
Yeah,
I got the pic, is this the same one?
yeah, so if you just write, so under zoning, it's called section 1110 prohibited uses. And then section 503 equivalent uses, those are the sections in the zoning that language is in.
Okay.
We have a motion on the floor now, I
Yeah,
believe.
he motioned it, he seconded it, now you have to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, doing, which one is that for the,
We vote on it.
Do I have to do two motions, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
Yeah,
you should do
you
two
have two
motions,
motions.
setting two hearings.
Again, we
You're
can,
gonna do
I'll
the,
make another motion.
okay, okay,
all in favor?
Aye.
okay. You and I have been talking a lot on this.
That's okay.
Okay, any more questions? And you can also write them down and submit them. Don't, if you be quiet person, don't be, you write them down, submit them, we'll answer them for you also. But, that's okay, we'll move on to the rest of the meeting. It's okay, everybody else.
Will the minutes of this be available?
Yeah,
So it will be,
it'll be on the website.
on the website after, we could do a draft. I could.
Murder. It's within 10 days.
And you can also go back and watch it on live stream.
Yeah, nice.
So anything you have, but, I lost my train of thought, so never mind.
Just to reiterate too, this is gonna be, a process, so we'll have the public hearing, we're gonna have more discussion. As Shelley mentioned, the planning board is already doing, reviewing the comprehensive plan and renewing the comprehensive plan. So anybody that wants to be involved in those meetings, I just want to say thank you for everyone coming tonight, it's nice to see everybody coming here, so the more involved you are, this isn't the only issue that, is important. And there's a lot of other things that come up, so please be involved with other things, yes.
Now, when the day of the public hearing.
It would be the second Thursday in August is, so what date is that? Anybody got a calendar real quick?
Need a bigger place.
Well, maybe be outside because.
August 13th.
August
August
13th.
13th.
So we might actually think about making it earlier if we're gonna have a public hearing,
Earlier in the day.
like 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Probably 6 o'clock that night, you guys probably.
Yeah, let's do 6 o'clock, cause it could be a late night. And I'm old.
Yes, Darius.
There is a 20th day, that's 6 o'clock.
So you can, right now, go online.
Yeah, you can view this meeting online. You can participate if you click on the link.
Wow, no, because they can hear you, they're asking. He wants to announce our planning board, do the comprehensive.
Oh, okay.
It's in the minutes.
Time out.
Lois, it's in the minutes. we'll be
Okay.
talking about.
Yeah, but he wants to announce something to everyone.
Just so you know too, if you're taking down things, August 13th is gonna be the public hearing. July 20th is the planning board meeting that we're gonna be discussing the comprehensive plan, so, and that's at 6 p.m., that's at 6 p.m.
With Shelley,
Right here.
you run the.
Both of those is 6 p.m.
Yes.
So did anybody understand the public hearing next month will be at 6?
Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna start the regular meeting, we're down 2 members.
I think that, oh, that's even.
Yeah,
All right, if you have other questions on
There's a lot of other.
moratoriums, battery storage.
Don't leave yet.
No, we're down 2 members. Eric Wilson is in Florida on business. And Andy is,
Personal reasons.
personal family matters. First reading. I said. Okay, so I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting held in June.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Payment of bills. General A Fund 26-199 through 26-266 in the amount of $29,818.24.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, aye,
Aye.
okay, yeah. General B Fund 2613 through 2615 in the amount of $904.86.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye. East City Lake 26-41 through 26-51 in the amount of $5,886.45.
95 cents.
95.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, you're just wrong. How come you're just wrong? Okay.
All
I'll second it.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. City Center Lighting 26-7, the amount of $376.85.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye. Total general fund vouchers, $36,986.40. Moving on. Highway DA Fund 26-81 through 26-89, the amount of $3,673.28.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Highway DB Fund 26-16 through 26-22, the amount of $48,728.37.
James, son. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Total highway fund vouchers, $52,000, 401.65. Hospital fund. Hospital fund, 26-106 to 26-126, the amount of $24,912.31.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Aye.
Aye.
Total vouchers paid $114,000, 336 cents. Okay, so reports distributed.
Oh, I collect, oh. You want me to say this? I collected 1746 in the, for the month of June. Okay.
Okay. Voting,
The highway department has been busy preparing roads for our upcoming oil and stone we're gonna be doing. We're still continuing to replace multiple cross culverts throughout the township. In addition, the crews have been focused on cleanup from the recent storm we had. We responded to numerous trees down, and we are working on repairing washouts as we can. I'm gonna try and keep this short and sweet, but we had bid openings for fuel throughout the whole township, so it'll cover this building, the highway department, the hospital. Maravitos came in lowest out of everyone. We had 3 bidders. We had Maravito, Fuel, and Blue Box. Maravido came in at $3.43 a gallon for diesel. That's summer diesel. We have a winter blend that we get that came in at $3.46. That just has a little bit of added kerosene so it doesn't freeze up. There's no bid on gasoline. This goes off the pump price typically. The heating oil is $3.40 a gallon.
And then propane is 184 a gallon. I just need the board to approve that, so I can let them know. And also this year, our contract is different. It's going from August 1st to July 31st. Just because we held out a couple months this year. So just keep that in mind going forward. That's all I got.
You need a motion, Cody?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't need a motion of approval.
You got a motion.
I'll make it.
You're making the motion, Bob?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Eric.
Can you?
Very well,
Announce?
Yeah, they're fine.
Sure. I'm not here.
I already, you need it.
No,
He really can't say anything, he's not here.
yes,
He just paused the meeting.
exactly. Moving on,
Okay.
Sheila?
Oh, okay, so. Delaware County has a youth program that we can have students come in and help. So I have two students now that's working with me. And they're just helping me clean up files and stuff, and I think it's a great opportunity for our students in the area to actually learn different skills. What we do here and use other equipments, and so I have two students working with me for the summer. Their name is Casey and Bree, and they're not twins, they look like they're twins, but they are sisters. Casey was with me last year. And they're doing a good job because they're cleaning up some stuff that we really need, and they're gonna be working with Julie with some retention as well. Also, I did get a phone call, as you know, back in June, as Frank had reported that we had an audit done. It was a Teamster audit. We were really good. We were pretty much in compliant with everything. But we also were told that because I didn't answer them, because I didn't realize I was supposed to, but anyways, we were relieved to have any kind of fees except for the audit, which is good. Because we did have some issues, but all towns do, and we're gonna correct them, and we're now really compliant with that. The last thing is that I need to address my office hours. Just to iterate that, my office hours are Monday through Thursday from 8:30 to 4, and on Fridays, 8:30 to noon. There are times on Fridays that when Julie and I try to work every other Friday, there are times that we do have conflicts with during the summer especially. We might not be able to cover, and I do close, and I do make sure that everybody is aware of that in a timely manner. I will be open tomorrow, which, because of Julie is able to fill in, but on August 7th, that is a Friday, and the office will be closed that day because of a conflict of my schedule and Julie's schedule. But Gina Smith, who is my second deputy and also is part of the assessor's office, and they are here on Fridays from 8 to noon. She will be here and she can take messages, but at this moment in time, that is all she can do. But I also have a cell phone that I have given out numerous times. I check my emails when I'm not here, even after hours. And so I am easy to get in touch with. If you leave me a message on my cell phone, I do get back, and I do check my emails periodically, even during after business hours through the whole week and on weekends. So I just want to iterate that for everybody that, I try to be everywhere, but I can't always accommodate everybody at the same time. So if you have any questions on that, just stop by and I'll give you a rundown. That's all.
And happy birthday tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, moving on to committee reports. On the highway, Cody and I communicate real well. I've been to some of the job sites. See the tubes he puts in, and the road work that he does, and just second to none. Very, as far as people, the highways unite all of us. We're all on the highways, and I have no complaints about Cody or his crew at all. That's all I can say about the highways. And the hospital's the next one, and both Eric and Andy are not here to report. Insurance, Kevin?
So I did meet with Karen Buckley, and she went over different kind of programs with NYMER. I do have a new flag for you. I left a note. Yeah, a new flag for you from her, and then also she did give some like posters and stuff there was something about having battery switch offs on the plow truck, so she mentioned about that. So after the meeting, I'll give you that.
Thank you.
All right.
Zoning and planning. Like I said, the comprehensive plan we're working on is 6 p.m. on the third Monday of the month. And we got an answer from the Army Corps of Engineers at the East Sidney Dam to possibly put walking trails in on backside of the dam. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna look at Shelley's crew's looking at it to open that up, and that'll be great if that happens. Also, our code officer, Dan Wilbur, is retiring. So I would like to, real quick, to open that up. I will read. I'm sorry.
You can try
Yeah, you need a motion to put it in.
Move. I'll second.
Okay, so there will be a posting in the paper for that. I also, I like to read a statement that I've written. Eric and myself met with City Mayor Ray Baker and City Village Trustee Vic Tartaglia and City Code Officer Jamie Cole. We discussed combining city, town, and village code operations on a contract basis. Since we are addressing Dan Wilbur's retirement, I offered to present the option at tonight's board meeting. We agreed in principle to keep dialogue open. That being said, Jamie, you want to say anything?
Sure. So our thought was basically to, you know, through shared services, whatever contract basis, it would, you know, I think personally be a win-win for both municipalities. The idea would be for the town to pay the village for code services. We would then hire another part-time person to assist me. The idea would be like a building inspector type role. I feel like for the most part, I could handle the code, permits, probably the planning, most of that. The building inspector person would help with the town building inspections, construction inspections, and village inspections at the same time. The goal would be to do it at a reduced cost to the town than what you currently pay for your two code positions. And obviously it would take some negotiation between the two. My thought would be, being that you're going into you're not at the end of a budget year with Dan leaving, you could do it on a trial basis until the new budget came into effect, and then you could look at it further then. Obviously, it would be a, you know, couple people from the town, couple people from the village would have to talk about it. But I think it would be a good benefit for both in the long run. I am full-time for the village, so you would basically, anybody in the town would have full-time access to the code officer. The building inspector could be on an on-call basis, hourly, whatever we decide, but.
Thank you.
So you're advertising for that position?
Yeah, we put it in the paper, yeah.
Can I just say something?
Sure, Pam.
There are rules and regulations with all the codes. When they are voted in, accepted in, assigned, if you will, that's their job, that's their duty. No laws are supposed to be overlooked, or we just don't, enforce all of the laws. And Mr. Cole made that remark at one of Shade Tree committee meetings, that sometimes it's just overlooked. And I object to that. If we're paying people and we put them in that position to honor the rules and regulations, they can't just be slipshod and say, oh, well, oh, well. So I'd like that down in the minutes, please.
Thank you. Paul, anything for?
Yeah. Last month we spoke about the Constitution pipeline and whether or not we're gonna send a letter to them. I did draft a letter. I also drafted a letter to Burke and I wrote a resolution for the town to approve it. After speaking to Eric, it'd be a good idea for me to sit in front of our lawyers and review it over the next week or two before we submit it. But it's still in works. It will go out. but I wanna make sure there's nothing in there that's violent. Make sense?
So
I'm on your side with it. Let me do it frank. How many people want the Constitution pipeline to go through town? See that? See that, show? How many don't want it? See that, show?
I can. You're not alone.
We're working on it, and, we'll get it anything. Yes, she is.
Moving
This
on,
was a battle many years ago and I'm not anxious to have that.
moving on to East Sidney Lake, if we have the agenda in front of you, I will read from it though. This is from John Nolan, our manager. We've continued installing new access points for the Wi-Fi system to add coverage to the park, which I've heard from several people about. 4th of July was very hot and busy. They changed a few breakers and outlets throughout the park in the front beach row and lower pine section, all older sections on the grid. You will reach out to NICEAG to see about transformer upgrades in the future to help with voltage drop coming to the park. We had some rain, severe rain and wind come through the park last week. We all suffered through that. All fences and posts, I think, on the campground have been stained this month. They really look nice. They also sent water samples to and they came back positive, negative, they were good. Sorry about that. Okay, what's that? The finance, I will, finance, a single business. New business, financial investments, fund balance, ethics, we are going to go see a lawyer on all three of those, among other things, very shortly. And we'll be able to report back on that, hopefully next meeting. IT. Oh,
There's a few things out there. I spoke with CrowdStrike on Monday. We're ready to roll it out, Sheila. So we need to roll out CrowdStrike on your desktops, Sheila, on Julie's desktops, and my laptop,
Okay.
and his laptop if it's on this network,
mine too.
and yours if it's on this network. Once I'm gonna start rolling it out tomorrow, I'm gonna start with my laptop, see how it works out, and then I'll roll it over to Julie's here now.
Pardon?
Is Julie here tomorrow? Or you?
She's here tomorrow. I'll be in the morning. I have a marriage license to do. I'll be in briefly, but
I'll
she's.
swing by and I'll try to get on one of your desktops, and then I'm gonna have another meeting with her on Monday to see how it's working out, and then we'll take it to the next steps. As far as East Sydney Lake, they had, with that storm on Monday, took the wireless down to its knees, some lightning strike or some stuff like that, but John got it up this morning with Tyler. We thank God for Tyler, because he had a backup of the configuration, and he got it back up and running. Edmonds Gov, I don't know if you're aware of this, Sheila, but, Ryan's gone.
Yes, I have, found that out.
So I could make, a new relationship with somebody new there, because Ryan was a good guy, but he's just finished. And that's all I have.
Kevin Grants,
Yeah, just so everybody knows, I did submit that New York Plays grant. That was like the Monday after the last meeting. The results are coming out no earlier than the end of August. They didn't really give a certain time frame for that, but it's no earlier than the end of August, so hopefully by the September meeting, we'll hear something from them. The CDBG grant opens up the application July 22nd. So once that comes out, I'm gonna meet with Charles Bailey again from Delaware Opportunities. And we're gonna review the application. As most people know, it got rejected last time. I have spoken to the state several times about that. We did have a meeting with them to go over it, so we should be able to, button up whatever discrepancies, that we had there, even though they were minor. That's it for that.
Amber, the DCO.
There is something for that. Sorry, I got this late. I didn't get to send it in. There is a resolution that we do need, yeah, it's Sheila's fault. There is a resolution that we do need to pass so that people can do voluntary, shelter contributions when they do their dog license renewals. It's basically like, if you hit that you wanna, put a tip on for something, or they have something, wherever you go. So they have something like that where you can do that. When you renew your dog license, you can contribute to the voluntary shelters, and then that gets distributed from the state. I'll read the resolution here. It's pretty straightforward. Whereas chapter 59 of the laws of 2010 as amended were further amended effective December 2025 to require a line item on dog license renewals giving applicants the option of making a contribution in support of the pound or shelter managed or contracted by the municipality, and deposit said funds in a dedicated fund to disperse annually to the applicable pound or shelter. Whereas the town contracts for these services with Delaware Valley Humane Society, and whereas the town clerk's office has initiated this requirement by listing the option to make donations to the Delaware Valley Humane Society on all dog licensing renewal processes, and establishing the budget line item of A691 to be added to the monthly reconciliation and payment to the town supervisor of monies taken in by the town clerk's office. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town board acknowledges the new legislation and approves the establishment of line item A691 and the process and procedures made for implementing this law. I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Alright.
Okay.
Right, so I need that back, and then, so the other means also is that I had to set up another account for it. And I needed that before I could do that, because it has to be separate from different, from different monies.
Okay,
Thank you, Kevin.
That's it for that.
and, Justice, Kevin?
There were a couple things, but since we're down people, we're probably gonna have to wait till the next meeting. I did just wanna bring up that, in terms of traffic diversion, we did get, where is it? It was 26,600, yeah, 26,600 from the fines traffic diversion program that we started. Just so people know,
Year to date, you mean?
no, just for,
That's,
oh, that's year to date, yeah, year to date. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to the Southern Tier Aviation Initiative.
All right, so just briefly to go through this, we are working on a project to try, it's a pretty big endeavor. We're hoping to bolster the Southern Tier in general as a hotbed of aviation learning, usage, training, all different kinds of things. I'm just gonna read briefly. We do have some handouts in the back there, so you can take that if you wanna see. I'm just gonna read quickly. What is this project? America doesn't have enough aircraft mechanics, drone operators, or aviation technicians. Airlines and manufacturers across the country are struggling to fill thousands of good-paying jobs. At the same time, our region has watched young people leave for decades because of opportunities that weren't here. The Southern Tier Aviation Initiative is a plan to solve both problems at once, make our region the place where America trains its aviation workforce. The centerpiece is a new aviation campus in Sidney, operated by Vaughan College of Aeronautics and Technology, a respected New York aviation college, at the hopefully at the former Aqua building next to the Sydney Municipal Airport. Students would train there as aircraft mechanics, drone operators, pilots, and aviation technicians, then go on to careers with wages well above the regional average. The Southern Tier Aviation Initiative itself is a separate community organization. It's kind of like a chamber of commerce for aviation that brings together schools, employers, local governments to make it work. So this is in its very early stages. Darius Palmer has been working on it for a while now, getting in contact with different kinds of agencies around, municipalities, legislators, at the state and federal levels. And so far, we've had a lot of positive feedback from everybody. It's really in early phases. Again, I don't want to keep people too busy with this, but if anybody wants to contact us afterwards, we can certainly speak about it. We do have the flyers there. Right now, one of the early stages that we're trying to do as like get some kind of foot in the door or some kind of process going is we're trying to see if we can get Vaughan College to do a drone training program with the Sydney Airport. And that kind of a thing it's in demand. And it's something that isn't kind of an easy step forward for them to do. So it's something that we're working on. Yes. Well, right now, as a step forward is, Vaughan College is gonna have to take this on as their own thing, right? In terms of, other kinds of things we're looking at, there's a feasibility study for this that we're looking at doing. There's various, what do you say, like, levels of possibility for how much that would cost, depending on like what we were trying to study. At the end of the day, again, this is in its very like infant stages, but it's something that we're trying to work on, with various levels of government. Shelley's been around to, you know, see what we're doing and, yes, Darius, you want?
That thing tack on, we're also working with the county and several other counties to getting like some kind of bus and transportation network to some of these rural areas. We're already setting down stuff with Delaware County opportunities as well as with Shenango and Otsego County.
So stay tuned. I left my card there and the flyer, so anybody who wants to check it out, please take some and, you know, get in contact.
So I'd like to make a motion that, the town board supports your endeavor.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, that way.
It's in theory, not putting any money.
No, I wanna be a pilot.
Well, I'm gonna tell you very quickly, my grandson graduated this June, and at his graduation party, he flew his helicopter to his graduation party with his instructor, cause that's what he wants to do.
Oh, cool.
So, it's pretty fun, cool of me.
You really want a motion for it?
Yeah.
Aye.
You're in?
Okay.
We're
Okay, cool.
good.
You're in. You're in the minutes, supported.
All right, thank you, guys. Next, New York Health Act. So I am working on the campaign for New York Health Act. This is a, just very briefly, again, we've already had a very long meeting. If anybody wants to contact me about this, please feel free. I have my cards there. I also left several flyers. This is basically a Medicare for all system, but it's just for New York. Now, this has been on the books as a, proposal for a very long time, over 2 decades. It's been heavily vetted, heavily studied, and they just recently came out with a new study about the savings, the potential savings for counties, municipalities, and school districts. And just to read off here, so this would be a, basically a payroll and income tax, and it would replace everybody's, private healthcare insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, everything. You would basically, you would pay into this as a payroll or income tax. And you would be entitled as a New York resident to any kind of healthcare, from soup to nuts, from prenatal all the way to elder care and everything in between. EMS transportation, pharmaceuticals, all kinds of specialty services. It would all be covered under the program. And just to point out, and I did leave some flyers here also for the New York Health Act. Again, please contact me if you're interested, and I do hold some talks about this from time to time, and I'll post about that, just so you can get an idea of what the cost savings would be. Currently, Delaware County pays, the counties in New York pay into the Medicaid system. They pay $8,898,000 into the Medicaid system yearly. For their own employee retired health insurance, they pay $8,691,000 into the system. So that's almost, what is that, like $17 million, something like that, right? Almost $18 million. That's what they pay now. Under New York Health Act, they would pay only $1.2 million. So going from almost $18 million of expenditures, and this, the county as an employer, this is assuming that as an employer, they would pay 100% of the healthcare. So right now, sometimes with, I don't know how the county does it, does that?
85%.
Right, so now, this is assuming that the county pays everything, and now they're only paying 1.2 million, right? So the savings are huge. I talked to Eben Bullock, the superintendent of, Sidney schools. They pay about $3 million a year in healthcare costs, and that would be reduced. So what they did was, this recent study that I mentioned, they came out, they did a cross-section of all these different municipalities across New York State. And they went from like the biggest budgets to the smallest budgets, and they did several all the way in between. I happen to get the Delaware County ones too. This is on their website, which is in the flyers. But what they found is that the savings percentages are almost all the same. They all end up being around this 90% mark. From whatever, it didn't matter how much the budget was or not, or you know, how big it was or how small it was, these savings were the same. For the town of Sidney, currently we pay almost $200,000 in healthcare insurance costs. Under New York Health Act, it would be about $18,000. So, again, like, all these things translate into a lot of other kinds of benefits that cascade out into society in many different ways. For the school, for example, $3 million less in their budget, it can either mean lower taxes, it could mean another teacher, it could mean another program, it could be another project. There's so many benefits that can cascade out of this kinds of savings. And again, just so you know too, the actual total cost of like, what they do is they figure they account for all the healthcare costs that everybody pays and all the health insurance pays for the whole New York State for a year. If you enact the New York Health Act, it's actually less, it actually comes down. Because what happens is, once you get rid of all this extra waste that's in the system, you actually have to pay less, and everybody gets more healthcare. So this is actually providing better healthcare than like the best union healthcare plans that are out there right now. You would get the same or better than what they're already offering. Okay, so that's, I don't want to get too into it. I'll have more talks on this later. Again, my card's there and there's plenty of information there as you're leaving. Last thing, New York Comptroller's event, August 12th at the Community Cultural Center. I'm gonna be doing an event with the New York State Comptroller's Office, helping people go through the unclaimed funds process. Anybody that, a program where, for whatever reason, you may be entitled to funds for a variety of different reasons, they end up in the state comptroller's hands one way or another, and you can apply to get those funds. So basically, this is kind of like a workshop slash Q&A session where people can come down that may not be savvy enough to do it on their own online, or if they had a problem. There are some instances where you do have to go through a process of proving your identity. They help you go through that, and that'll be August 12th, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Community Cultural Center.
And that unclaimed fund thing actually works.
Yeah.
About a year ago, I got
Yeah.
$3,500.
Yeah,
I went out there, looked, put my name in there, my social security number, my old address, because that's where it went. It was $3,500.
My daughter did too.
Right now.
yeah, and there are flyers in the back there for that as well. That's it.
Thank you. Comments from the floor?
Since the dog licensing and all this is, now she has to create a new account and everything. How come the dog pound doesn't have to give a monthly note, tell what's going on there with the finances and all that? They don't do that, do they?
They tell us when they pick up dogs, we get a report on spay and neuter, I think.
Yeah, and also this is really just, the reason why we have to do it is because this is for like donations. We don't really get into their budget on
We
it.
contract.
We have a thing for donations that we match it every month and bring it there.
Okay. Yeah, this would just be for like individuals who wanna do it, and so
No.
it's just a technicality that we have to have a separate line item, just so that like everything is very, very transparent about like when people donate, it doesn't go into the regular fund.
Well, I
So that's
just wondered
very
why they never had to give a report.
Because we contract them out.
Sure, no, that's a good question.
No, I mean, we give money to them every year.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I see that we've been put Wi-Fi up at the park. Do you think like if we put up some signs saying that there's Wi-Fi at the park, it might encourage more kids to go?
Over at the East Sydney Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk to John about that. Yeah, sure.
You know, with less kids playing in the woods than there used to be.
yeah.
Right, it's sad.
Well, we get the trails too, then.
We won't sit in the park lines, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
More questions or answers or comments? Everybody's happy?
Yeah,
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
me.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for coming. Comprehensive plan, third Monday of the month, 6 o'clock.